This overall bill dedicates $200 million over the next 7 years to address the impact of the climate crisis on the sequoias. Appropriations, and these appropriations look almost identical to the Senate version of Senator Feinstein's of this bill as well. But when we look closer at this House version introduced by Speaker McCarthy, we see that unlike the Senate version, this version does seem to compromise our bedrock environmental laws, like the National Environmental Protection Act. Additionally, we have also seen from Speaker McCarthy that any new spending must be accompanied by cuts to existing spending. And I do believe that it's important for the committee to understand what 200 million cuts the Speaker intends to impose in order for us to make these important investments. But let's dig further into this bill. Mr. Desai, I'd like to understand what emergency actions are already taking place at our national parks to restore and conserve giant sequoia groves. And can you describe current efforts that are currently underway?
Thank you for your question. As I was mentioning in my opening statement, specific to Yosemite and Sequoia Kings Canyon, so on the national park side, Yosemite has already been advancing biomass removal and thinning projects in Tuolumne and the Merced Grove. They're also continuing work at the Mariposa Grove. And what we just saw recently, which we're thankful for, is Sequoia Kings Canyon has this Sequoia Protection Action Plan that lays out in 3 years how they plan to accomplish all of their priority fuels reduction treatments. So there's, from what we're seeing, there's action taking place by the National Park Service.
Thank you. And in your view, has NEPA been an obstacle to these conservation efforts?
They have not. I mean, the Park Service is working within their existing authorities, and our interest here has been to scale that up. And the way we see that scaling up is by actually getting funding and resources so that they and this coalition can do their work.
Thank you. And is that what you would say are the primary obstacles to improving these conservation efforts, just the funding and additional resources? Are there any additional obstacles that you see in your purview?
Well, there's stuff at the state level, like air quality related issues that Dr. Nelson mentioned, but that's a state issue. But at the federal level, what we're seeing is that it's funding and staffing. You know, a CE categorical exclusion can move as fast as we have people working on it. If we have a compliance person spread across 10 projects, that's 10% working on this. And so we would like these expedited processes to be maximized as quickly as possible. And that means we need staffing and money.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of touch on that. I would like to seek unanimous consent from the chair to introduce into the record the Sequoia and Kings County National Park Sequoia Grove Action Plan. Mr. Desai, do you happen to be familiar with this report?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you happen to be familiar with the action plan report for the Sequoia and Kings County
yes.
National Grove? And this action plan does lay out a 3-year timetable for caring for the Sequoia groves. But it also notes that the action plan is, quote, subject to staffing availability, to your note. Do you believe that this plan is achievable given current staffing levels, and what would appropriate staffing levels look like for us?
So yes, that's what the Park Service has said. And you know, when we enter fire season, staffing is deployed to all these other uses, right? So we need dedicated folks to this exact Sequoia protection project. And I think the needs have been identified, at least by Sequoia Kings Canyon. I don't know what that exact number is off the top of my head, but that is what we need to fund. Or at least get the administration to release funds, because Congress has provided through the BIL, the Inflation Reduction Act, the administration with funding that can be used for this exact purpose. And so that's that's where we think, that's where we would like to spend some of our attention on.
Wonderful, thank you. And this action plan does not require changes to NEPA or any bedrock environmental laws, correct?
It's working within the existing authorities for the Park
Thank you.
Service.
And with that, I yield.